He was the only man to defeat a young Mike Tyson in his prime, that too with a knockout. He shocked everyone so thoroughly with his knockout victory that many audiences had a hard time believing that the match was legit. Yet, he did it. Coming out of the blue as a lesser-known heavyweight competitor, he accomplished the impossible and instantly became the new hero of the American boxing scene. Yes, we're talking about James "Buster" Douglas. But what should have been a revived and boosted boxing career soon floundered into obscurity as he lost his titles in his next match against none other than Evander Holyfield. He would occasionally make appearances in the media since then, remembered only for his highlight achievement. It was this achievement that would soon come to define everything about who he is. So what's his story? It's hard to find anyone who has the kind of knowledge about his childhood and early career coming up like they know about Mike Tyson's. But we're here to change that, because the story of Buster Douglas deserves to be remembered. Childhood. James Buster Douglas was born on April 7, 1960 in Columbus, Ohio. He was born the son of William Dynamite Douglas and Lula Pearl Douglas. His father, William Douglas, a professional boxer, ran a gym at the Blackburn Recreation Center near downtown Columbus. His father introduced him to the world of boxing, but it seems that his first loves were football and basketball. It was especially in basketball that he would have his first major achievements. His basketball prowess led his high school, Lyndon McKinley High School, to Class AAA state basketball championships in 1977. James grew up in the predominantly black Linden neighborhood of Windsor Terrace in Columbus. His formative years were shaped by the vibrant community around him. While it did shape him in becoming the person he eventually became, life was also often cruel on him. He was the victim of bullying, and he frequently had a hard time going about how to respond. "It can be rough in one's life," Douglas said. "My mom was the one who brought me through it. I never looked back once. I stood up to the bully and I saw it was something that could be dealt with, be it physically sometimes or just standing up. It can have a very negative effect on an individual and alter one's life. Fortunately, I was able to overcome it and become the man I am today," he added. Somebody would say something and it was like smack, whack, bam, bam. She said, "You can't just whack them because they say something." She said, "Wait until I get touched and then let loose." After high school, Douglas played basketball for the Coffeyville Community College Red Ravens in Coffeyville, Kansas. As a 17-year-old, he stood tall at 6 feet and played as a power forward. His basketball journey continued at Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio, before he received a basketball scholarship to attend Mary Church University. Eventually, he returned to Columbus, where he shifted his focus to boxing. Boxing journey. It appeared that boxing was bound to be the path for him, owing to his father's legacy. He had a short stint as an amateur, regarding which information is rather hard to find. But it does seem that it was short, all things considered. After all, he had entered competitive boxing rather late, after having spent a lifetime with basketball. Buster Douglas had a successful amateur boxing career. He was a 3-time Golden Glove champion and a 3-time Ohio State Fair champion. He also participated in the 1975 Junior Olympics, though without much success. He made his professional boxing debut against Dan O'Malley at the age of 21 on May 31, 1981, defeating O'Malley via third-round TKO. He went on to win 4 more consecutive fights after the debut, which included 3 wins via stoppage, while suffering 1 loss to David Bay in 1981. Until 1983, he had an impressive string of dominant victories, either being unanimous decision or knockout victories. For any young boxer starting their careers at the time, Douglas's stare could appear unnerving and scary, combined with the fact that he was a particularly tall heavyweight boxer. Yet, some unfortunate losses throughout the 1980s, including brutal TKO defeats, prevented him from breaking into the mainstream. He would lose his first chance at clinching a heavyweight world title at the hands of none other than the formidable Tony Tucker. This was the event that destined him to face Mike Tyson in 1990, but the road to Mike Tyson at first had to be paved with impressive displays against Trevor Berbick and Oliver McCall. These 2 names are far more recognizable to any boxing fan, as Berbick proved to be one of Mike Tyson's notable victories. Oliver McCall, on the other hand, went on to have high-profile bouts against Lennox Lewis and Larry Holmes. But Buster Douglas was really nowhere near as explosive and powerful as Tyson. His victories over McCall and Berbick were 10-round decision victories. They were slow and gradual slogs that Douglas gave it his all for. Douglas etched his name into boxing history on February 10, 1990, when he stunned the world by defeating the seemingly invincible Mike Tyson to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. The historic upset. Buster was given little or no chance of surviving more than a handful of rounds against the fearsome Tyson, who was undefeated as a champion. That fight in Tokyo was considered an easy and mere stepping stone for Mike Tyson, prior to an expected and much anticipated fight against Evander Holyfield. Not many knew that the challenger was a tremendous sportsman who had excelled at high school basketball. But people refused to take him seriously despite his record of 29 wins and only 4 losses as a professional. And that's why Tyson's loss is considered to be one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. There were a lot of things that could have been said about why Mike Tyson eventually lost. It's quite well known that many cracks in Tyson's personal and professional lives were showing up. His training and practice discipline suffered during this time, under the weight of his addictions towards drugs and women. In contrast, Buster Douglas gave the fight his all. He left no stone unturned in preparing for what was obviously the most dangerous and the biggest fight of his career until that point. So when it came time for him to make his entrance, his enthusiasm gave everyone pause for thought, as he almost ran into the ring. Who had ever seen a fighter run to the ring to fight Tyson? He wasn't walking to an executioner's chair. He was jogging to a throne, Larry Merchant told Bleacher Report. It was the first sign something different was going on. We didn't know it, but it revealed itself soon enough. Nothing was going to stop Tyson from being knocked out in the 10th round. Buster Douglas's mother had died, believing that Tyson would knock him out a month prior to it. Proving her troubled mind wrong and putting it to rest even in death became as good a motivator as any. Mike Tyson looked menacingly indestructible in the ring. He had built up a formidable 37-0 record with 33 KOs before this fateful fight. The bookmakers in the audience were all on Tyson's side. It was a guaranteed moneymaker for those that bet on Tyson. But they didn't know anything about Buster. He tried his best to survive Tyson's initial round onslaught. Since he stood taller than Tyson with greater reach, he was able to use his strong jab to keep him at bay. But Tyson kept going through the defenses and managed to knock him to the floor in the 8th round. He was in the danger zone, but was inspired and determined not to buckle. He got up, fought on, and fought back, giving Tyson a serious beating that he hadn't had in a while. During the next round, he completely dominated. In the 10th, the shocker happened. It was an amazing dream, Douglas said of that February 11th, 1990 knockout. He had done it. He knocked out a prime Mike Tyson to take home the undisputed heavyweight world champion title. Floundering. The trouble seemed to have begun almost immediately after this spectacular victory. After the fight, Tyson and fight promoter Don King challenged Douglas's victory, claiming Douglas had gone down first in the fight but had been given more time than allowed to get up. The dispute led to months of drama and expensive litigation. This controversy took a toll on Douglas and made it very uncomfortable for him. After all, he had nothing that was comparable to the endless sums of wealth Mike Tyson and his promoter both had. Furthermore, while he had put his late mother's concerns to rest with a stunning victory, it didn't change the fact that she was gone. This was something that he had great difficulty dealing with. There was also the fact that he simply wasn't willing or ready to be a famous celebrity. Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali had a much easier time dealing with the attention, and quite often, they took good advantage of it. It wasn't like that for Buster Douglas. From then onward, his time wasn't his own. Douglas was now a celebrity, and everyone wanted a piece of the new champion's time. Such a loss of privacy was hard to deal with. I wanted to sit back and relax, he said. But it was like, no, we've got to do this. We've got to do that. It became very demanding. I got to the point where this was an awesome dream, turned into a crazy nightmare. On top of all that, diabetes was taking a toll on his health. This meant that he couldn't stick to the strict and intense training regimen that got him his victory over Tyson. When Douglas returned to the ring 8 months later to fight Evander Holyfield, he was out of shape and weighed significantly more than he did for the Tyson fight. Holyfield easily defeated him in 3 rounds. After that, he was written off as a fluke. But what most didn't know back then is that he had no choice. Everything in his life worked to take him off boxing, particularly diabetes. Douglas had to retire. His weight ballooned to nearly 400 pounds, and he fell into a diabetic coma in 1994. He couldn't continue performing at his peak, even if he wanted to. Things steadied, and he left the hospital a while later. But Douglas knew he had to lose weight, and that was thus resolved to head back to boxing as soon as he could. And that's what he did. While he had some success enough to contend for a world title again, time had moved on. After a brutal first-round KO loss to Lou Savarese for the vacant IBA World Heavyweight title, enough was enough. For his health and well-being, he had to quit. He retired for good in 1999, and for someone struggling with diabetes, he compiled a respectable 37-6-1 record. While boxing gave him his life, and then later on saved his life, it became apparent that leaving boxing in the end was the right choice for Buster Douglas. His story is a reminder that beyond the media presence and the larger-than-life figure that we create for our favorite boxers, they're human in the end. They have very human weaknesses, and these weaknesses often end up cutting professional lives short. While Buster Douglas was battling diabetes and essentially fighting for his life, many had expected him to become an even scarier and meaner version of Mike Tyson. But when he failed to deliver, it was as if he was dropped by the boxing world and his fans like a bad habit. The fact that he had personal demons to deal with, along with the diabetes that quickly became life-threatening after his defeat at the hands of Evander Holyfield, was ignored. Yet, his perseverance and strength shined through and he came back for a second stint. Buster Douglas's life today thanks him for decisions made in the 90s. He had already achieved an unimaginable feat, and while he lost quickly to Evander Holyfield, he's had the honor of facing such a champion regardless. Sure, his second run of his professional career petered out, but it was all right. Today he resides in Columbus, Ohio, where it all started, and he lives a healthy and active life surrounded by family and friends. He will always be remembered in boxing history as a spectacular boxer, and one with the rare honor of decisively knocking out Mike Tyson in his prime. Did you know about this story? Is there anything important that we've left out? Don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe. We'll see you again when the dust settles on the canvas.